military people. Would you please state your name?
Paul Rivard, Senior,
And where do you live, Paul?
75 Mechanic Street.
I mean, have you lived in Hoosick Falls a long time, or?
No, I moved here in 1938, and I married a girl on Clay Hill. Genevieve Bojack was her name at the time.
I see.
And, well, we were married.
Where did you move from, Paul?
I moved from Pittstown.
From Pittston.
From Troy to Pittstown.
I see.
I
All right.
was educated in Troy in Canada.
All right. So you moved here in 38, and what did you do then?
Well, I went to work in the specialty. They had a union in there at the time, and I made more money there than I ever did in my life. $22.27 a week. It was a lot of money.
Yeah, those days, yeah.
That's when a dollar was a dollar.
Yeah.
But today, you don't even stop to pick up a dollar if it's on the
That's
sidewalk,
right.
you know what I mean?
All right, so you went to work for Specialty, and how long did you work there?
I worked there until the time I went into service, which is in March 1944.
All right.
I went into service then. And I went in the Navy, pardon me. I went in the Navy and I went from there to Sampson, New York. I think we were there something about 5 weeks, and then we went right to Brooklyn Navy Yard. And I was put on, I'd never seen a big ship in all my life, and I was put on the USS Missouri. And all of a sudden they interviewed different people and stuff like that. And they told me I was going to be the right gun on turret 2, which is a 16-inch gun. And believe it or not, at that time, one of my jobs was to be dragged through the gun, you know, on my stomach, and then back through on my head, on my back, you know what I mean? Looking for cracks in the rifling and stuff like that.
I see.
Well, believe it or not, people didn't know it at the time, but every time you shoot a 16-inch gun, the lining comes out a little bit further, you know. I'll never forget, we had a chief there, and I said, well, how the heck are we going to cut that darn thing off? He said, oh, I didn't know it at the time, but we had a milling machine that took it right off, you know. He said, we get a hacksaw, we cut it off.
You didn't go to gunning school then? You just went right on?
I went right from boot camp right into...
I see.
Right into...
Because a lot of guys I've interviewed, they went to gunner school before they got a...
I didn't know anything about a gun or anything else, but I learned awful fast. In other words, I had a very good crew. A Polish lad by the name of Maraska was my rammer man, and a fellow named Vogel, he was my elevator man, you know what I mean? And there's only 2 guys in the turret, 2 people in the turret. But I often think about it. Well, we could load and fire a 16-inch gun in 18 seconds. It's unbelievable. When I stop to think about it now, it takes me 8 and 10 to turn around, you know?
Yeah, sure.
But what we done when we shot the gun, it was elevated, of course. The front of the gun was elevated. And the rear of the gun, that was down in the pit. So the minute that gun went off, I jumped down, I rode the gun back, I got what they call a bore clear, in other words, high pressure air, blew out the flames in the gun. I raised my hand up, and the Polish lad here, Maraska, he would take him. The shell was already, the projectile was already in the gun, you know what I mean? And I would give him the signal by just waving my hand. He would ram that thing in there, bang it, and we would put my hands forward, and the elevator man would take him through the ammunition, by the way, it was six bags. They weighed 110 pounds apiece. And then days I could take 110 pounds and shove it like crazy with it.
You did all that in 18 seconds?
All that in 18 seconds.
Wonderful. All right, so now you're on the Missouri. You got on the Missouri, went out of boot camp, and where did you sail? I mean, you sailed out of Brooklyn?
Oh, yes, we went out.
Because it says in there, that thing there, that it was commissioned in '44 at the Brooklyn Navy Yard.
Right. I went right to there, and we went from there to Trinidad on the shakedown cruise.
I see.
That's where I first learned how to fire the guns, you know what I mean?
I see.
And the chief by the name of E2, who was in the Navy for 20-some-odd years at that time, he knew all about 16-inch guns, so I gained an awful lot of knowledge from him. You know, it was really, really good. Then part of I was in what they call a second division, which tells you about the second turret too, you know what I mean, in the
Yeah.
second division. There was 130 men in a division. And we had, it took, well, there's different elevations, you know what I mean, all of it. Each turret, you know, is a big round thing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's about maybe 100 feet in diameter. Then there's a shell deck, and then down at the bottom is the ammunition deck.
I
So
see.
we went from there,
You went from Trinidad now.
went to Trinidad. and
After the
went-
shakedown crew, you...
With the shakedown cruise and everything else, and we came back home, and they were great. I mean, they gave us 4 or 5 days off, and I'll never forget that time as long as I live. I never, at that time, the train came here to Hoosick Falls, and I was in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, and I'll never forget it. I put in for a long weekend pass because I was married at the time. I got married in '39, and my wife was expecting on Paulette at the time, my daughter Paulette. We had one son. So I put in for a long weekend pass, and I had 68 cents in my pocket. Didn't I get the foolish pass? So I thought to myself, how the heck am I going to get, well, I was in Boston, sorry, at the time. So I thought, well, if I can only get to Providence, Rhode Island, I'd be all set, you know. So I got on the train, and the guy says, 68 cents. Oh, trains were crowded in them days.
Yeah,
you know.
sure, remember.
So I had the 68 cents in my hand, and I said to the conductor, I'd like to have a ticket for as far as 68 cents would take me. He gave me that fishy look, and he kept right on walking. I said, boy, the shore patrol is going to come back any minute.
Yeah, get
The
you.
Frenchman's going to wind up in jail, you know, but you
Yeah.
know, when you're away from home, you don't care, you know what I mean? So he came back about 15, 20 minutes later, and he punched, he said, where you going? I said, Hoosick Falls, and blah, blah, blah. He started punching tickets in here. Here's a ticket down to Hoosick Falls, and he says, here's a ticket back. He says, have a good time.
Isn't that wonderful?
You
Great
couldn't,
story.
you never get that today.
No,
you know,
great
but
story.
These were the signs of
I
the
see.
time.
So you came home, saw your wife, and
Saw my wife,
and
saw
your
my
boy,
kid,
and-
and never saw him again for almost 2 years. You know what I mean?
that was the last time you saw him for 2 years.
Yeah.
All right.
We went from there, in no time at all, we were rubber stamped, in other words, out you go, you know. So we went through the Panama Canal, and we were on our way to the Pacific. And we just wound up in the last battle of the Philippines. That was just the mopping up operation and everything else. But the first major contact that we had was on Okinawa. We bombarded all ends of the Okinawa, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to fool the Japanese, not to tell them, you know, to point out to them exactly where we're going to land. But I think we landed in the hardest part of the whole foolish thing. In other words, there was no fighting. The guys landed, and there was no battling at all for 2 days.
Yeah.
In other words, we had them pretty well confused, you know.
Yeah.
But the third day, all the devil broke out.
Yeah, I know. I've been reading about it. Yeah.
Yeah, after about the third day, all hell was loose.
And you people were bombarding, trying to soften up the enemy and to try to fool them.
Bombarding all over the top of the soldiers' heads, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And wherever their division or the battery commander called for, we fired shots
I
on certain
see.
occasions. You know.
Okay.
So after that island was secured, which is several weeks, I guess, we went there, from there to Ulysses, which is an island called Mogmog. I think everybody was in the Navy went there.
I think so, but every other guy mentioned it. Yeah.
Mogmog. And we weren't in there, I'll never forget. That was kind of what we called easy. In other words, it was, you could relax a little
Good
bit,
duty,
you know what
yeah.
I mean? And one night, I'll never forget it, they said that we were going to watch a movie. Gee, that was great. So they took and had a big screen, they put the darn thing up. And the movie just started, and all of a sudden there was a big explosion. Yeah, you would not believe, but an ammunition ship not too far away from us blew up, and that was the end of our movie. You know?
Yeah, I guess so.
But
Was it hit by a
everybody-
sub or just the blow up on itself?
no, it was an ammunition ship, and it blew up by itself.
I
don't know. Some sort of carelessness on board, I guess. What caused it to do? But that was the end of the movie.
Yeah, I guess so.
But we had movies at sea quite a lot.
I
quite
see.
a
And
lot.
then, so here you are in this island, and was it getting near the end of the war?
No. We went from there, we got loaded up and everything else, and our next, we went out and we were decoying. In other words, we were fast. In other words, we went with like a couple of destroyers and a heavy cruiser. you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember all the time there's all kinds of aerial attacks, you know, the Japanese
Yeah.
suicide planes, you know what I mean? And they were quite common. From what I understand as time went on, you know what I mean? At the time, they were just a Japanese plane or an enemy plane, you know, whatever you want to call them. And so down they came, you know what I mean? And those guys didn't even know how to fly, you know what I mean? They were like picking chicken feathers off the chicken, you know what I mean? But there we went from there to Iwo Jima.
Oh,
And we covered the landing there.
I see. We had 5 men in that landing in Iwo Jima from
Yeah, Art, I know Art, one of them, Art
Yeah,
Aaron.
yeah. We've interviewed, and so I know there were 5 on that
I
island.
knew Art real well.
So you were in the bombardment of Iwo Jima.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
We covered the landing. We
I
covered
see.
the landing, and actually we started bombarding it for maybe a couple of weeks before the landing. That was a normal cycle, you know what I mean?
Right.
Of course, that was the Japs were entrenched in the caves, you know what I mean?
Right.
And they never fired a shot back. So there was 5 battleships, I think it was, cruisers and everything else, and we threw everything at them. But they never fired a shot back. They didn't want to give their positions away. But the first wave of, we really bombarded them when they landed. And we were about 500-600 yards away, you know what I mean? You could see pretty good. Halsey was on board at the time, and he had his idea. He'd run the thing up until we went aground, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was.
It was his flagship, the Missouri.
He was his flagship at the time, right?
Yeah.
So, anyhow, the first wave went in, and they got almost on shore. Indeed, they wiped a whole bunch of them out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But anyhow, from there we prepared to land in Japan, and this is what gets me. I look, and how many books I've looked into, and I can't find where we got credit for. You know, but there was HMS King George, and there was the Iowa, the Wisconsin, and there was ourselves, and there was the battle wagon. I can't remember where it was. But we went up and down the Japanese coastline, and we bombarded.
Yeah, it says that in that write-up that I picked up off the internet.
I didn't even.
It says that in there that you bombed Japan.
We bombarded Japan for 2 or 3 weeks, and the bullets were on their way, you know, to land in Japan.
Yeah.
Well, one of the situations was to go ahead and bombard all over the first place, so they wouldn't know where you landed, you know.
Yeah.
You may send 2 ships over here today and go down the coast about 300 miles and blow the living snot right out of them, and then go back up, and 2 or 3 nights later you do the same thing.
I see.
But that was that's the way they do things. But you're talking about Halsey. I'll never forget one night I was way up in the bow of the ship, which is right up here.
Well, hold it so I can get a picture of the ship there that we got off the internet there, and I can zoom right into it. All right. Now let me. All right, right there, perfect.
Okay, see this section here? That number 20 millimeter gun there. And the Marines were assigned to that gun. And just below that, right about in here, is where our 2nd Division quarters were. In other words, this was a sail locker, what they call a sail locker, where they kept the anchors and ropes and everything like that. But the anchors, I'll tell you a little history about that. Each link of the chain weighed 110 pounds on the ship.
I see.
And when they let down the hook, in other words, which is the anchor, boy, I'm telling you, the smoke would fly like you would not believe, you know. But right here is the gun I was on, right gun turret 2, right there.
Yeah, bring it down again, please. There you go.
Right gun. And just below that, by 15 feet or so, was where the piece was signed.
I see.
Now
All right, let me. I'm going to take back now, and so we get you. All right, so now you were bombarding Japan. About atomic bomb. I mean, where were you when they dropped the atomic bomb?
All of a sudden we were informed to pull out.
I see.
So we figured, what the heck the idea of us pulling out? Here we are getting prepared for a landing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we pulled out maybe 300-400 miles. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
But I know we sailed out maybe overnight and the following day. And all of a sudden, they said to us, they dropped an atomic bomb. What do I know about the atomic bomb?
Nobody knew. It was a big
The bomb was a bomb, right?
Yeah, right.
So they said, "There's an atomic bomb. What the heck is that?" And everything else. But anyhow, I'm getting a little bit ahead of my story. Not ahead of my story, but at the same time, about, maybe 2 or 3 days later, I'm going down to Chow. And this guy come out of the Radio Shack. He was all excited, nervous, and jumped right up and down. He said, "The war is over." This is the first inkling that I ever had. Now, this was a communication from Washington to the ship, to Halsey and all that kind of stuff. I said to him, I said, "You're kidding." And he gave me the paper, and he took right off. And I had that paper up until about, 15 years ago. I had a small fire at the house.
Oh, that's too bad. That's
And
a
that-
historic
and
document.
The thing got wet and everything else. You
Yeah.
know what happens to wet paper.
Yeah, right.
That I had that for a long, long time. I never told nobody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My wife knew it, and like that. Even the kids didn't know it. You know, my wife knew it, and like Teddy knew it. My brother-in-law, he was on the ship and all that. I mean, he was on the Guam at the time. We operated together quite a lot.
So, so now the war was over.
The war was over.
All right. Then you found out what? I mean, because
So then I said, "I can't believe, can't believe." And all of a sudden, Halsey was on board, you know. All of a sudden, we call him the bull. He flew into the speaker, you know what I mean? He said, "Boy," he said, "the war is over, and we are going to be witness to the greatest event in history." I'm talking about, he said, "We're going into Tokyo Bay, and we're going to have them sign the peace." He says, "It may take a day or so to get things done." So we just floated around and took time. Still didn't know what they're talking about. So we didn't trust nobody. It doesn't pay to trust anybody at that particular time. You know what I mean?
sure.
So they said to me, "Rivard, you're going to load the right gun in turret 2. I said, "Yeah, okay." So we loaded the right gun in turret 2. So we loaded the gun, and we put it on automatic, what they call automatic. It follows the target, you know what I mean? I still don't know what's going on. We went to Tokyo Bay, and we dropped the hook. In other words, we're in a situation where we could get out if we had to in a hurry. I'm telling you something. It was really something to remember, you know what I mean? So we're in Tokyo Bay there, and all of a sudden the Jap destroyer comes out, a whole 4-piper, which means it had 4 stack.
Yeah.
It was a coal burner, and you could see it for 100 miles, you know what I mean? Tokyo Bay is a big bay, you know what I mean? And he came on, and this fellow I'll tell you about, a fellow by the name of Ichu, not Ichu, but he went on to be star in High Chaparral. The father.
Erickson.
Leif Erickson, that's
Yeah.
right. He said to me, "You know what?" He said, "I've been assigned to take pictures from here." I said, "Gee, that's good, you know." And I had my right gun loaded, and Chief E2 had a finger device. All you had to do is push the finger, and that 16 inch going to go off. Goodbye tin can and everything.
Yeah.
else. And he said to me, I'll never forget it, he said to me, "Rivard, this is our chance to start World War III. I forgot. No, let's go home, you know.
Yeah.
So they signed the peace and all that, and I stood right there and I looked down and I watched the whole thing. And nobody was allowed up there at all because of the fact that the gun was loaded. And the 2nd Division crew was off on one side, and the 1st Division crew was off one side, and all these people came on, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We looked down and watched the whole thing. We watched all the big shots and everything else, you know. And the Japanese came on board. And anyhow, we took the gun out of automatic because we had to bring it over the side, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So as long as we knew darn well, as long as the Japs were there, they wouldn't start anything, you know. They weren't on board no more than 20 minutes. Signed all the goddamn peace, and they got back in again, and I jumped back in the turret and took all the card tables up and everything else. And I bet it wasn't an hour later. He says, "Fellas, we're heading home." I said, "You're heading home?" All of a sudden, I think all the B-29s and every ship that the Navy had, every plane, it was from horizon to horizon. You couldn't even hear yourself think. They went over and showed the Japs that we had We had plenty of ammunition. We didn't
I see
have-
they put on a show. I mean, they
Oh.
flew over
Oh.
Japan, over Tokyo.
over Tokyo Bay as part, and the ground, everything just shook. There were so many of them, and they were up maybe, I would say no more than 500 feet. I'm just guessing that,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But then they passed the word that we were going home. And I'll never forget that as long as I live. We turned the ship around and pulled the hook up, and then we heard whoop, 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 which is us. In other words, the ship's under sail, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? We waved goodbye to everybody. And then we were heading towards Okinawa. And we got into the biggest storm that was ever recorded in Navy history. We lost our anchor, we lost one anchor, and we lost an awful lot of ammunition and everything else is floating all around, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But all the way down, we didn't make no headway for 2 or 3 days. It was really a bad storm.
Quite a few fellas have spoken about that storm. That
Yeah.
must have hit quite a few people.
Oh, gee, that was really a dandy storm.
And you were a big ship, so I mean.
Yeah,
you know,
but what happens when a lot of people don't realize when this big ship goes nose down, the rear end comes up and the propellers go
yeah,
shakes the whole ship. You know what I
I
mean?
see.
But
So you went through the storm,
we went through the storm,
and you went to Pearl Harbor. Is that where they were heading for? And
we went to Pearl Harbor, yeah. And I still don't remember where, but I think we went from there to Norfolk, Virginia.
I see.
And they put us in dry dock, and we got a brand new paint job for show purpose.
Yeah,
We look kind of sad.
yeah, you've been through a lot.
So then we pulled into New York City, and I had passes for my wife to get on board and everything else. I said, the heck with the passes, I'm going home. That was it. So that was.
Then you were back home in Hoosick Falls.
I came back home to Hoosick Falls, and I've been here ever since.
Okay, and what did you do after you got home? You were married. You had 2 children then.
Yeah, I had 2 children by then. One of them I had never seen before.
Yeah.
Paulette. That was Paulette. Then Clarence Myers. I met Clarence. I knew him for years and years and years.
Oh, before we get into that, there were 3 other people on the boat from Hoosick Falls on the
Yes.
Missouri. Would you name them, please?
There was John Norton, who's deceased now.
And what was John's job? Do you know?
John, I think he was in the 5th Division. In other words, he was on the 5-inch mount.
All right,
You know
and
what I
then,
mean?
all right,
Then
then,
there was Billy Reinford,
Yeah.
who was also in the 2nd Division with me.
I see.
And there was Bill Burns, who was in the quartermaster corps. In other words, he was up on the bridge. He had a
Okay.
good job. He wasn't what they call gunnery.
Yeah.
90% of the people in the ship are in gunnery, you know what I mean?
I hope to get him when he comes back from Florida, maybe. Didn't he go to Florida? Is that the Bill Burns? There's so many Bill Burns, I don't know which one.
Yeah.
Did he marry Rita that worked at the post?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
so when he comes back from Florida, maybe I can
Yeah.
get him to tell his story.
Yeah.
All right, so,
He could tell you about the same stories I would.
yeah, right. So now, you're back in Hoosick Falls, you're married, you saw your daughter for the first time because you were away for 2 years,
Right.
and then where'd you go to work, or what happened in Hoosick
I
Falls?
met Clarence Myers.
Yeah,
Clarence Myers was just talking about going into business. And of course, the specialty at the time was going down like everything else. And I was always interested in carpentry. So he said, boy, what do you say I'm going to go in the carpenter business. He said, you want to go with me? Not as a partner, but just to go with me. I said, okay. So this was in 1946, you know, because the specialty closed down, I think, in 1946. I've been a carpenter ever since.
I see. And you worked as a carpenter and brought up your family. So did you
Well,
have any more children? Than
Oh
the
yeah,
two?
we had two other.
So you have 4
girls.
children.
Yeah, we had 3 girls and a boy.
I see. And do they live in town or?
The boy's in Petersburg. He's a contractor.
I see.
He's been in business now for several years. He's done carpenter work all his life too. He started out with me.
I see.
You know what I mean? But like
Sure.
everybody else, he just goes on and on and on. You know.
And-
And the girls, my daughter Anne Marie, which is the youngest of the children, she works in the Mary McCullen Hospital. She's got a
Yeah, I know
she
her.
got a list title all that long.
Yeah, I know her. I know her. I
You
talked
know
to
Anne
her.
Marie?
Yeah, sure.
Then I had my second daughter, Patsy. She worked in the emergency room for 32 years.
Where? The Mary
Mary
McCall?
McCullen, yeah.
I see.
And then my oldest daughter, Paulette, she never worked in a hospital for so she works at the Family Health Center up here quite a lot, and she works in that other health center quite a lot.
Oh.
They're all in medical, I
I
guess.
see, good, that's wonderful, and you can see them because they live
I
around,
see them
so
every day, yeah.
you got a good family setup there.
Yeah.
All right, is there anything else you want to say about Hoosick Falls or the service or anything else before
No,
we?
but I did bring, and I don't know whether I lost them out of the truck or what, because I went done some shopping before I came here, where I brought some pictures of 1952, when we took the, had the 125th anniversary celebration.
Oh, it's too bad you lost it.
I don't know if I lost it or if I left them home.
Okay, but
You
that's
know
too
what I
bad.
mean?
Yeah, all right.
I'll bring them down to you. But I am looking for that one picture. I wrote a letter to Jim Brand, who was the editor of the Standard Press
Yeah,
at the
right.
time, and I wrote him a letter all about what I'm telling you.
Oh, that'd be great if we could get a hold of that. I'd love to have it and put it in our booklet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I'd like to be able to find that.
And we thank you very much. It was an interesting story. It was well told, and we